Welcome back to Capital Tonight. The cost of college is still a huge obstacle to getting a degree. That's the takeaway from a majority of Texans recently surveyed in what's being called the 101. The higher ed poll found that among those without a college degree, 75% said cost was the biggest deterrent to completing school. Job or work responsibilities followed at 66%, and taking on student loan debt closely behind that at 65%. Meanwhile, 79% of Texans with and without that debt view it as a major problem. The higher ed poll was commissioned by the nonprofit accredited online Western Governors University and two other higher ed entities. And joining us now is the Chancellor of WGU Texas, Steve Johnson, and Ray Martinez, the president of the Independent Colleges and Universities of Texas, one of the other groups who collaborated on the report. Get all those names correct.
Absolutely.
Thanks to both of you for being on the program.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We're talking about the cost of college, student loan debt, problems for Texans, but your report also found that 93% of Texans surveyed agreed it's essential to have an educated workforce in order for the Texas economy to compete with other states. So where's the balance there? Chancellor, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, I have to say this is the fourth year we've done the poll, and we've consistently seen both the concern amongst Texans over cost and affordability, but also the interest in knowing that a higher education is necessary both for them and their families, but also the well-being of the state. I think, certainly for us, it's interesting that that continues on, but I think the third category is interesting as well, that students see job responsibilities and family responsibilities as a major obstacle. So many of us in higher ed are obviously working towards more affordability, more cost containment for students, but also ways to overcome some of those barriers. Institutions like mine, which is an online institution, is one way to overcome some of those obstacles for students considering their jobs and families. Also, many of our sister institutions are doing other things as well to try to make sure that students can both afford college and also have the flexibility to access the education they need.
Ray, I'll ask you this. I mean, the findings come as the Texas House and Senate begin debating their proposed budgets, and the initial ones keep spending flat on various higher education programs, including the state's main financial aid program. What kind of impact do you think the findings that you guys have from these results can have on lawmakers' decisions, and how do you push them to pump more money in, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's important. The findings are compelling from a public policy perspective, right? So we see that the public has concerns about cost affordability and student debt. And those of us in the higher education arena have to recognize that and have to respond to that. And I think that's very important. But I also think that it's a shared responsibility. So for elected officials to be able to see this data, it can help to validate what I think really there's a desire to do, and that is to shape public policy in a way that gives even greater support to an already, in my opinion, outstanding post-secondary infrastructure that exists here in the state. We have outstanding, Karina, outstanding community colleges. We have outstanding public universities, not just our research-intensive universities like UT Austin here in Austin or A&M College Station, but our regional public universities are truly outstanding. And those that I represent as president of ICUT, the Independent Colleges and Universities of Texas, 42 independent, non-for-profit institutions of higher education that truly are also contributing to what I think is a great higher education infrastructure here in the state. I actually think that elected officials at the Capitol realize that, and they recognize that. And I think that they want to make those investments that are going to help to make it even greater, quite frankly. And I think these poll results will help to do that.
Options, so to speak, giving students, giving Texans options. What other key findings do you want to point out? Did you find there that you want people to really be paying attention to?
I think one of the more interesting things for us is the notion that not only do Texans recognize that there's an economic value to having a post-secondary education credential, whether that's a certificate, an associate degree, baccalaureate on into graduate school, it's also that they see the value in terms of how society perceives them, the pride that they have at a personal level in achieving that kind of a credential makes a difference. So it is both in the economic realm, but also in kind of the social realm of knowing that they've made that kind of a move in their lives.
You guys have come together for this, and you represent a wide range of higher education, and just how could this partnership help widen opportunities? You're kind of touching on it there, right? But just in terms of innovation, in terms of how more people can get an education and different ways to approach that.
I think that we're stronger when the three sectors of higher education in Texas collaborate and work together. And I think that's actually, we're unique in that sense. I get a chance in my role to interact with individuals across the country who do similar work that I do. There are associations of private, not-for-profit colleges around the country. And what I find is that there's not that same sense of collaboration. There's often a sense of competition between sectors of higher education in some of the larger states around the country. In Texas, that's not necessarily true. We are all at the same table. Our community colleges, Jacob Friday, who's the president of the Texas Association of Community Colleges, was a part of this poll with WTU Texas. There is a strong sense that together we can collaborate and make higher education stronger. And I think that breeds innovation. And I'll give you one quick example. ICUT has launched what we call our our transfer initiative. Turns out we have about 7 or 8 ICUT institutions, private universities here in the state, that offer fully online degree programs so that a student could graduate with an associate's degree from ACC here in Austin, and perhaps if they're interested in a criminal justice degree from a private university, for different reasons, they might want a private university experience. Laterno University out in East Texas offers a criminal justice degree. They could go and finish a criminal justice degree, get a bachelor's degree, and still stay right here in Austin and complete that degree. That innovation is possible because we talk to each other and because of that collaboration.
Well, and I'm sure you have things to add, but just in terms of online technical programs, other ways to continue this, and all part of as well the 60 by 30, which I'm sure you guys talk about as well.
Right, and you know, for my institution, WGU Texas, our typical student is about 34 years old, working in the field, having a lot of those life responsibilities. So our online platform that's competency-based works well for those kinds of students as they move through material as quickly as they can, rather than measuring seat time. But to echo Ray's point, I mean, really, where we're best is when we're all together, finding solutions for students. We recognize there are multiple pathways to achieve higher education, and the goal for us is to create those seamless pipelines for students.
I will ask you lastly, and I know that there's been, you know, a lot put into higher education, and there will still be a lot of talks about it, but with so much focus on public education this time around, concerns that higher ed will kind of take a back seat for lawmakers, what they're focusing on this time around?
Well, I actually think it bodes well for higher education. That is our pipeline, right? I mean, so the focus on K through 12, I think, is quite appropriate, and I think it's fully supported by those of us who are in the higher education arena. And I'll also tell you this, Karina, you know, the coordinating board, the higher education coordinating board here in Texas, keeps statistics on 8th graders and how far they go into post-secondary education. We've been doing this in Texas for a number of years. And what we find is that in 2006, there were about 330,000 8th graders that were in our public schools across the state of Texas. Today, those 8th graders are about 25 or 26 years old. What we know about those 330,000 or so 8th graders is that only about 21%, maybe 22% at best, actually completed a post-secondary credential. And it gets even worse if you're Hispanic, for example. If you take the cohort of Hispanic students that were in that 330,000, you'll find that at best maybe about 15 or 16% of Hispanic students graduated. If you're from an economically disadvantaged family, that number goes down to about 12 or 13%. That's the focus that I think lawmakers understand, and that's what we're going to get, I think, in this legislative session.
We could continue this conversation for a very long time. We'll have to have both of you back. I hope you'll come.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for being on.